Pastor Samuel Briggs had walked the same prison hallway every Wednesday afternoon for the past 15 years. The guards knew him by name. The inmates called him Preacher Sam. To some, he was just another visitor. But to others, especially the broken ones, he was the only person in the world who still believed they mattered. The prison air always smelled like bleach, sweat, and lost hope. Steel doors clanked shut behind him as he passed through security. He held only one item in his hand, a leather-bound Bible so worn the corners looked like they had been chewed by time. "Afternoon, Pastor," the guard said as he opened the final gate. "Afternoon, Tom," Samuel replied with a gentle nod. Today, though, something felt different. There was a name on his visit list he hadn't seen before. Darren Cole. Cell 9. No visitors. First timer. Violent. Keep distance. Samuel looked at the note again. He had met hundreds of inmates, but something about that last line made his stomach tighten. Keep distance. He didn't believe in distance. He believed in stepping closer. He believed no one was too far gone. As the guard led him through the long block of cells, voices echoed from behind thick bars. "Hey, preacher! Pray for me, will ya? Tell Jesus I'm sorry." Samuel smiled gently, but kept walking. He had one man to meet today. One man in cell 9. When they arrived, the guard stopped. "Sure you want to do this, Pastor?" the guard asked, lowering his voice. "He's not like the others." "I never met a man Jesus wouldn't sit with," Samuel said softly. The guard sighed and stepped back. Samuel approached the bars. There he was. Darren Cole. He was younger than Samuel expected, maybe 30 or 35. Tall, broad shoulders, messy dark blonde hair. His face looked like it had once been handsome, but anger had changed it. A scar ran from his temple to his jaw, cutting through a week-old beard. His eyes were cold, like frozen water. But beneath that ice, Samuel saw something else. Pain. Deep pain. Darren sat on the small bench inside his cell, arms crossed, staring at the wall. "Darren Cole?" Samuel asked gently. No answer. "My name is Pastor Samuel Briggs. I just wanted to come by and—" "I didn't ask you to come," Darren snapped, not looking at him. He didn't flinch. He'd heard worse. "I know, but I thought maybe you could use someone to talk to." "I don't talk to preachers, and I don't need saving." "I'm not here to save you. I'm just here to listen." There was a long silence. Darren slowly turned his head. "Why?" "Because you're a man, and men need to be seen, even in places like this." Darren studied him, confused. No preacher had ever talked to him like that. "No sermon?" "Not unless you ask for one." "No prayers?" "I'll pray for you either way, but I won't force you to hear it." Darren stood and stepped forward. His eyes met Samuel's for the first time. "You think I can change?" "I think anyone can, but I think it starts by being honest with someone." Darren smirked. "Then I'll be honest. I killed someone. A man. With my bare hands. I don't regret it." Samuel didn't blink. "I appreciate your honesty." Darren's smirk faded. That wasn't the reaction he expected. "You're not gonna flinch? Preacher man afraid of the monster?" "You're not a monster," Samuel said calmly. "I crushed his windpipe." "Then you're a man who made a terrible decision. That doesn't make you inhuman." Darren stepped back, shaking his head. "You don't know anything about me." "That's why I came. To know." Darren looked away. Samuel waited. Sometimes silence was the most powerful thing. After a full minute, Darren sat down on the bench again. "You got 10 minutes, he muttered. Samuel smiled. 10 minutes is more than enough for a beginning. He pulled a small notebook from his coat and sat on the folding chair outside the cell. "What do you want to talk about?" Darren looked at the floor. "Nothing." "All right, then I'll talk." He opened his Bible. "I used to hate God." Darren looked up, eyebrows raised. "I lost my wife and daughter in a car crash 15 years ago. A drunk driver hit them. I was late picking them up. I blamed God. For a long time, I thought he abandoned me." Darren said nothing, but something in his face softened. "I almost took my life," Samuel said, quietly. "But a man I barely knew knocked on my door the night I planned to do it. He didn't preach. He just sat with me. We didn't speak. We just sat. And I didn't go through with it." He closed the Bible gently. "Sometimes that's all we need. A little company. A little light." Darren stared at him. "That really happened?" "It did." "And now you come here to, what, repay the favor?" Samuel shook his head. "No. I come here because pain connects people. And I've known enough pain to see it in others." Darren leaned back against the wall. For the first time in years, no one was trying to fix him or fear him. They just sat. The next Wednesday, Pastor Samuel walked through the cold steel gates again. The same guards, the same smells. But something felt lighter this time, like hope had quietly walked in beside him. The guards noticed too. "You going to see Cole again?" one of them asked, raising an eyebrow. Samuel nodded. "He actually speak last time?" "A little," Samuel replied. The guard laughed. "Well, if you get him to say 5 full sentences today, I'll buy you coffee." Samuel smiled gently. "I don't come for conversation. I come for connection." They shook their heads as he walked on. Back in cell 9, Darren Cole was already sitting on the bench when Samuel arrived. He didn't look up right away, but he didn't ignore him either. "You're back," Darren said flatly. "I said I would be," Samuel replied. Darren looked through the bars. "Most people don't keep promises in here." Samuel nodded slowly. "That's why I do." They stared at each other for a moment. No words, just two men separated by steel and silence. Then Darren said something unexpected. "You were late." Samuel checked his watch. "By 4 minutes?" Darren shrugged. "Still late." Samuel chuckled. "I'll try to do better next week." There was a pause. Then Darren said, "You're not like the other pastors." "Why do you say that?" "They come with big words, soft hands. They talk to the guards more than they talk to us. They tell us God loves us, then run out like they're scared we'll bite." Samuel looked down for a second, then back at Darren. "I used to be one of them too." Darren raised his eyebrows. "I used to be scared of this place too. Scared of what I'd hear, what I'd feel. I didn't want to see the ugliness. But then I realized I carry my own ugliness too." Darren studied his face carefully. "You mean the crash?" Samuel nodded. "It changed me. Took everything I loved. I was a pastor back then, but not a real one. Not yet. I preached, but I didn't understand pain. Not like this." There was another silence. Then Darren leaned forward. "I used to work construction," he said, voice low. Samuel's eyes lifted. He didn't interrupt. "Built houses, sidewalks, roads. I liked using my hands. It made sense, you know? Concrete didn't lie. Either it held or it didn't. No guessing." Samuel nodded gently. "I understand. I had a girl once. Her name was Marie. She had this laugh. Man, it could melt a glacier." He stopped and looked away. Samuel waited. "I used to think maybe we'd get a small house someday. Maybe 2 kids. Maybe a dog." "What happened?" Samuel asked softly. Darren's face hardened. "Her ex-boyfriend happened. Came back drunk one night. I told him to leave. He laughed in my face, called her names, said he'd be back with a gun." The following Wednesday, Pastor Samuel arrived at the prison early. Too early. He didn't mind. He sat on the cold bench in the visitor waiting area, Bible in his lap, notebook beside him. The guards had come to expect him. They offered him coffee now. They even smiled a little. "Cole's been quiet lately," one of them said as he passed. "Not like before. Whatever you're doing, it's working." Samuel smiled gently. "He's doing the work. I'm just showing up." When the time came, he walked the long hallway again, past the bars, past the men with empty eyes and loud voices. Some called out to him now, "Hey, Pastor, you got a Bible for me? Come pray with me next time." He always promised to return. But today, he was focused on one man. Cell 9. Darren was waiting. He stood when he saw Samuel and even nodded before the pastor said a word. "You're early," Darren said. "You noticed?" Darren gave the smallest smile. "Hard not to. These walls don't change much." Samuel pulled up the chair. "You been reading the notebook?" Darren nodded. "Wrote a few things, too. Would you like to share?" Darren looked unsure for a second, then reached under his thin mattress and pulled out the notebook. The edges were smudged. It had been read more than once. He handed it through the bars. Samuel opened to the first page and read aloud. "When I was a kid, I wanted to be someone who mattered. Not someone people feared, just someone people remembered in a good way." Samuel looked up. "That's powerful." "It's true," Darren said quietly. "You still can be." Darren sat on the bench and stared down at his hands. "What if it's too late?" Samuel shook his head. "I believe people carry both the damage and the dream. One doesn't cancel the other." Darren said nothing, but he listened closely. Then he surprised Samuel again. "I wrote a letter." Samuel raised his eyebrows. "To who?" "My mom." Silence stretched between them. "I haven't written her in 10 years. Last time I heard from her, she told me I was a curse, that I ruined her life just by being born." Samuel's heart sank. "I'm sorry." Darren shrugged. "I used to hate her, but now I just want her to know I'm trying." Samuel nodded slowly. "Would you like me to help you send it?" He hesitated. "Would you read it first? Tell me if it sounds stupid?" Samuel took the folded letter Darren pulled from his pocket. It was written on prison paper, the lines shaky but full of effort. He unfolded it and began to read aloud. "Dear Mom, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you care, but I need to try. I'm in prison. You know that. What you don't know is I've been thinking a lot about my life, about you, about how we ended up like this. You used to laugh sometimes when I was small. I remember it. I remember your hands when they combed my hair. I remember the time you made me pancakes, even though we didn't have syrup, and you put jelly on them instead, and said, 'Poor people find their own way.' I didn't understand what you meant until now. I used to think I was just like Dad. You told me that, and I believed you. But I met someone recently, a pastor. He told me I could be more than my worst mistake. So I'm writing this to tell you, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know I'm trying. For the first time in my life, I'm really trying. If there is even one small memory of me that was good, I hope you hold on to that. And if you ever want to write back, I'll be here, waiting. Your son, Darren. When Samuel finished, there were tears in his eyes. He looked up at Darren. That's one of the most honest letters I've ever read. Darren looked down at the floor. Do you think she'll even open it? Samuel thought for a moment. I don't know, but I believe she should, and I believe you should send it whether she does or not. Why? Because healing doesn't start with their answer. It starts with your truth. Darren took a deep breath. Okay, I'll get it mailed this afternoon, Samuel said, carefully refolding the letter. Darren leaned back against the wall. I don't expect anything. That's okay. Sometimes the act of speaking is enough. They sat in silence for a while. Then Darren asked a question that took Samuel by surprise. Do you ever feel guilty that you survived? Samuel looked up slowly. Yes, every day. Darren nodded. Me too. Not for living, but for not being better. Samuel's voice was quiet. You're being better now. Darren swallowed hard. I think I want to believe in God, but I don't know how. Samuel smiled gently. You already started. Belief doesn't begin with answers. It begins with a question. The buzzer rang again. Time was up, but this time neither of them felt rushed. As Samuel stood, Darren said, Can I ask one more thing? Of course. Next time, can we pray? Samuel's smiled widened. I've been waiting for you to ask. Later that night, Darren sat alone in the dark, the letter gone, the notebook back in his hands. He wrote something on a new page. I'm not just surviving, I'm starting to rebuild. The walls around him were still cold, but inside his heart, something warm had begun to grow. Something that felt like light. It had been 2 weeks since Darren gave Pastor Samuel the letter for his mother. 2 long weeks. Every day, Darren watched the mail cart roll down the prison hallway, and every day, it passed him without stopping. He told himself it was okay. He told himself he didn't care. But he was lying. Each night, he lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, wondering, did she read it? Did she throw it away? Did she cry? Or worse, did she feel nothing? Then, on a cloudy Wednesday morning, everything changed. The mail cart stopped. The guard reached into the pile and pulled out a small envelope. He looked at Darren through the bars. You Darren Cole? Darren stood up slowly, heart pounding. Yeah. The guard slid the envelope through the slot. Looks like you got mail. Darren took it with shaking hands. It wasn't thick. It didn't feel heavy, but it might as well have weighed 100 pounds. The return address was from his hometown. His mother's name was on the corner. He stared at it for several minutes before he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once. No card, no photos, just a short message in black ink. He unfolded it slowly and read, Darren, I didn't know if I should write back. I don't even know if this letter makes sense. But I read your words. Twice. Then again. 6 months had passed since Darren Cole first met Pastor Samuel Briggs. 6 months since the man in cell 9 had spoken through clenched teeth, arms crossed, eyes filled with ice. Now he sat in a folding chair, surrounded by 3 other inmates. They weren't playing cards or wasting time. They were listening to him. He held the black notebook on his lap, a pencil behind his ear, and his sleeves rolled up. His voice was steady, calm, and clear. "So, the first thing I want you to remember," he said to the group, "is this. Your time in here does not erase your value. You still matter." One man nodded. Another wiped his eyes. Darren continued. "And the second thing, you gotta learn to talk like you believe that. If you walk into a job interview or back into your family's life and you carry shame like a backpack, they'll feel it. So carry purpose instead." The group clapped softly, not for show, but out of respect. After the group disbanded, Darren returned to his cell. He had filled 3 notebooks now, each one filled with names, stories, and goals. Inmates who wanted change. Inmates who just needed someone to say, "I see you." Pastor Samuel still visited every Wednesday, but now they were more like partners than preacher and prisoner. Samuel brought books, letters, and once a surprise visitor. It was late spring when she came. Marie. The woman Darren had once loved. The woman whose safety had cost him his freedom. She walked into the prison's visiting room wearing a denim jacket and a nervous smile. When Darren saw her, he stood frozen. He hadn't seen her in 10 years. His throat went dry. But she smiled and said, "Hey, Builder." Darren's heart ached at the sound of that voice, soft, familiar, real. "You came," he whispered. "I read your letter," she said. "My letter?" She nodded. "The one your pastor sent to your mom. She sent it to me, said I should read it." Tears filled Darren's eyes. "I didn't mean to ruin your life," he said. "You didn't," Marie replied. "You lost yours for trying to protect me. That's not something I could face before, but I can now." They sat down at the small table. Marie reached across and touched his hand. "She's proud of you," she said. "I heard what you're doing in here. Helping guys, changing lives. You're not who you were. You're better. I still have a long way to go." "So do I," she said. They talked for an hour, laughed a little, cried a little. And when it was time for her to leave, she said something that stayed with him forever. "When you get out, come find me. Not because you owe me, but because maybe we still have a story to write." 2 more years passed. Darren served 7 years total. On the day of his release, the sky was bright blue. Birds sang in the trees. The air smelled like hope. He wore a clean shirt, worn jeans, and shoes donated by a charity Pastor Samuel worked with. The guard at the gate handed him a bag with his letters, his 3 notebooks, and the black Bible Samuel had given him just 1 month earlier. "You're really leaving?" the guard said, half smiling. Darren nodded. Guess I am. You're not like the others. I used to be, but now I'm trying to be more. The gate buzzed open. Darren stepped outside, and there, standing by a dusty blue pickup truck, was Pastor Samuel Briggs, smiling, arms wide. Beside him stood Marie. She wore a red blouse and held a small sign that read, "Still trying." Darren laughed, really laughed. It was the kind of laugh that came from deep inside, the kind that had been buried for years. He ran to them and they wrapped him in an embrace. "I don't know where to start," he whispered. "You already did," Samuel said. They drove away slowly, past the gray walls, past the men still inside.